Hello and Jai Hind to everyone. Welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Ritu and today we are going to discuss an important topic of the polity, which is Indian Penal Code. And as you all know that this topic is important from GS2 perspective. So this is not the first time that we are discussing about the Indian Penal Code, but this topic again came into the news because the Amit Shah has tabled 3 kinds of bill in the Lok Sabha. But what is the controversy and history of the Indian Penal Code we will discuss in the class. But we often know that there are different kind of provisions in the Indian Penal Code, and there are few punishments, there are few crimes which has a proper kind of punishment that this crime deserves this kind of the punishment. But there are few crimes which are not enlisted in the Indian Penal Code. And in independent India, we have different kinds of crime which are not coded in the Indian Penal Code. So this gives us a ground to discuss about the Indian Penal Code and its effectiveness in the modern India. So coming to the points of news. So first of all, we will discuss about the news, that what is the news, and a good code no longer, that what is the effectiveness of the Indian Penal Code, and then what is the need of codification, that what is the history of need of the codification. And after that, influence of the Bentham. So Bentham was an English philosopher. So we will also discuss about that, how he has influenced the Indian Penal Code. And after that, we will discuss about the Macaulay drafts of the IPC, that how Macaulay drafted the IPC, and then rebellion of 1857 and the IPC. So how IPC enacted after the revolt of 1857. After that, we will discuss about the practice question for prelims and mains. Moving to the news part. So we all know that on August 11, Union Home Minister Amit Shah has tabled 3 kinds of the bill. And what are the names of the bill? So the name of the first bill is Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita Bill. The second is Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita Bill. And the third is Bharatiya Sakshya Bill. And which kind of the bills they have replaced? So they will replace Indian Penal Code. The second is the Code of Criminal Procedure and Indian Evidence Act. So they will replace this thing. So moving to the next slide. So what is the Indian Penal Code? So before moving to the what is the Indian Penal Code, first of all we will know that what is the opinion of Amit Shah and the government on this. So Amit Shah has, while tabling these bills to the Lok Sabha, Amit Shah has said that that these bills are outdated in nature and they serve the colonial purpose and they dictates the master-servant relationship in India. And they were not made in the favor of the common people of the India. They were made in the favor of the English people of the India and the Britishers. So they did not serve the common people of the India. That's why this bill needs to be abrogated and a new bill should be introduced so that it could serve the common masses of the India. So this is the opinion of the government and the Union Home Minister of India. So what is the Indian Penal Code? So Indian Penal Code is official criminal code of the Republic of the India, and it is a complete code of procedure of the criminal laws. And when it came into effect, so it came into effect in the 1862, and there is a twist in this, that in 1862 it was introduced, but it was not applied to the princely states of the India. It means that princely states has their own kind of the rules, and they have the own darbar kind of the system where the rajas and their officials decide what is the criminal procedure and what kind of the justice should be given to the masses. So this is the peculiar feature about the Indian Penal Code. Moving to the next slide. So what the next slide says, a good code no longer. So we all know that this is a colonial product, and in Indian constitution also we have taken so many regimes from the colonial India, and Indian legal system also dictates about the colonial regimes, and Indian Penal Code is one of such examples that this has been taken from the colonial regime. So many experts say that this should not be continued in India, especially in independent India, where the needs of the people have been changed, where the crimes has been changed. So this is not a good code longer. So this is the debate around this, and because it serves the colonial mindset and it has been made from the colonial point of view, that's why it is not a good code longer. Moving to the next slide. So what the next slide says, the need for the codification. So what is the history behind the need for the codification? That why Britishers thought that there should be the codification. So what happened that while administrating the India, the Britishers get so many kind of the difficulties because India's population is very vast and diverse. Here different kind of the population lives. Like we have the Muslim population, we have the Hindus population, and each population have a different kind of the laws and regulation. We have also the customary rights for different kind of the communities. So it's very difficult for the Britishers to rule in the India. So that's why they need that there should be a codification of all the laws and there should be a common law for whole India. So this is the logic behind the codification of the Indian Penal Code. Moving to the next slide. So what the next slide says that, Macaulay has been given the task of codification of the law. And why Macaulay has been given this task? Because he was the person of the leading legal mind. So he has been given this task to codify all these kind of the laws. And what is the opinion of Macaulay regarding this? So Macaulay thought that, by codifying all the Indian law, he will make Indians from backward to the modernized. And this law and this codification will serve the Indians to more civilize them. So this is the purpose of the Macaulay and this is the opinion of the Macaulay. And so many experts have given different kind of opinion on this. Many of the British experts have criticized this move, but what the Macaulay and what the British officials and Macaulay thought about this, so they thought that, the physical distance between East and West would go up because of the introducing such kind of the bills. So this is the logic behind of the codification and introduction of such kind of the bill. So moving to the next slide. So what the next slide said, the influence of Bentham. So we have already discussed that Bentham was an English philosopher. And Macaulay has lots of influence of Bentham in his codification. And the main concern of the Macaulay was that there should be codification of the laws. And where it has been derived? So it has been derived from the Bentham's philosophy. And Bentham was the philosopher of utilitarianism. And what utilitarianism says that, there should be the greatest happiness to the greatest number of the people. So their main concern that, there should be the codification of the law. And if the law would be codified, it would solve all the masses, including the Indian masses. So that's why with this opinion, the Macaulay has, created this kind of the codification and he has introduced such kind of the law. So this is the influence of Bentham on the Macaulay. Moving to the next slide. So what is the process of drafting of the IPC? So we all know that Macaulay has drafted. So in 1833, the British Parliament passed the first Government of India Act to organize British rule in the country. Subsequently, there was a law commission also created and the chairman of the first law commission was the Macaulay. So he has been given task to codify and to compile all kind of the law. And Macaulay has compiled all kinds of the law and he has, completed his first version of the codification by 1837. But subsequently what we have seen, and unfortunately there was no influence of Indian law on it. It was totally English in nature, and Indian laws and Indian customary rights and whatever the different kind of laws we have for the different community was not given the full consideration. Because of this Indian Penal Code is called in English in nature. Moving to the next slide. So what the next slide say that, so many scholars having this kind of opinion that, this was a English transplantation on the Indian Penal Code, and Indian Penal Code was result of the English influence. Among all those scholars, David Sky was one of the scholar who says that, IPC represents the transplanting of the English law in India, which means that, there was no influence of the Indian laws, there was no consideration of the Indian laws. And the needs of the communities were not given the attention while compiling such kind of the law. Even the Western experts have also criticized such move by the British regime. So this is the opinion of the Western experts. So Western experts have also said that, whatever the Indian Penal Code we are seeing that, that are the part of the English law system, and Indian legal system was part of the politics of the England. But here, whatever the Indian Penal Code we have, that is not part of the Indian politics. So that is the stark difference between English law system and the Indian Penal Code. Moving to the next slide. So what the next slide said that the rebellion of 1857 and the IPC. So Macaulay has given its first version in 1837, but it was not enacted. It was enacted in 1862. But why it was enacted in 1862 after 30 years? Because there was no proper need felt for the codification of the laws. But when there was a revolt of 1857, then Britishers got realization that, there should be a proper codification of the laws and there should be a proper laws to rule this country, because earlier they were getting so many administrative problems. And after this revolt, they know that, the Indians are much aware. So there should be more scrutiny on them, and because of that scrutiny they had enacted such kind of the law. So it takes almost 30 years to enact such kind of the law. Earlier there was a rule of English company, but after 1857 the British crown ruled the Indian land and they had enacted such kind of the law to rule the Indian masses. So this is a brief about the Indian Penal Code, and there is a summary about this that, whatever the codes we have introduced that were not serving to the Indian masses and that were not according to the needs of the Indian masses. And that laws are still continuing in India, and they are very onerous in nature, they are very harsh in nature, and few crimes are still unaddressed. So these kind of crimes should be addressed. Moving to the question part. So what is the question? So when was the Indian Penal Code enacted? So the answer, we have discussed about this. Moving to the mains part. What is Indian Penal Code? Does it need recodification? Discuss. So first of all, you have to give a brief background about Indian Penal Code. So you have to introduce IPC, when it came, what is the history of its enactment. You can give brief introduction about IPC. And then you have to come to the second part. Does it need recodification? Because so many people are saying that Indian Penal Code has been abrogated, but it has been not abrogated. The bill has been tabled in the Lok Sabha, but still there in the Indian legal system. That's why it is not in abrogation form. So here there is a question that does it need recodification? Then definitely yes, it needs recodification because it has been made 160 years back, and at that time India's society was very different, the needs were very different, the crimes were very different. But right now different kind of crimes we have, the needs we have, the population is changing day by day, the diversity has been changed, the dynamics has been changed. So these kind of things requires different kind of recodification. On the other hand, the second argument is that that this has been made by the English and Britishers, and they have not served the Indian masses. They had not thought that what Indians are thinking about such kind of the crimes and such kind of the laws. So there should be involvement of the Indian masses, and their thought should be also given the priority while codifying such kind of the laws. So these kind of arguments you can put in your answer, and in conclusion you can write that definitely it's a part of the English legal system and English law system, but we can take good examples from that, and we can learn the method of the codification, that in which manner they had codified. So this could be your answer. I hope you like this lecture. If you have any queries related to this lecture, kindly ask in the comment section. Happy independence to all of you. Thank you.